What is the biggest, most emotional purchase that you will likely ever make? It's your home. It's where you'll spend 30 years making memories, and you'll spend 30 years trying to pay it off. And you need to protect this significant purchase with homeowners insurance. But you're not an expert in homeowners insurance. You don't know what the differences between the insurance carriers are, or what coverages you need, or what's a fair price for you to pay. And worse, the process is tedious, inefficient, and confusing. It needlessly takes days. I'm here to introduce Matic. Matic makes buying homeowners insurance a breeze. 2 to 3 minutes, and you're done. And homeowners insurance is a requirement on your home loan. And there are 2 problems getting it. Number 1, you have to go to insurance carrier after insurance carrier, filling out your information over and over again. And each carrier is going to ask you 40 to 50 home-specific questions like, what's your roof made out of? Or do you have a circuit breaker or a fuse box? And how should you know? You don't live in the house yet. And the second problem is, unless you're a licensed insurance agent, you don't know what the best policy is for you and your home. And that's why we created Matic. Think Amazon's one-click buy it now button, but for homeowners insurance. Matic's API integrates directly with mortgage lenders and insurance carriers to provide homeowners insurance during the mortgage process. Within 60 seconds or less, Matic will figure out what coverages you need, shop multiple insurance carriers, and give you a quote custom specific to you, and all you have to do is click one button. And let me show you how easy it is. The mortgage process is extremely complicated, and that's why lenders are moving to digital platforms like you see here. Academy is one of the largest lenders in the nation, and they built this portal to help their home buyers get into their house quicker. And almost every part of this home buying process can be done online, except for homeowners insurance, until Matic. Vlad here is getting his loan from Academy, and now it's time for him to get insurance. He opens his to-do task, simply clicks Get Quote, and his process begins. Now notice that Vlad didn't have to put in his name, his date of birth, his marital status. He doesn't have to know what his roof is made out of or whether there's a circuit breaker or a fuse box. Vlad didn't have to put in any information at all. Academy sends us this data via API. Matic normalizes the data, passes it to, adds new layers of data like public record sources, and then passes it to multiple insurance carriers. Now Vlad has to sit back, wait, and get his quotes, and already, boom, here it is. Matic figured out what coverages are best for Vlad in his home, normalized it against multiple carriers, and then picked the best price for that coverage. We shop for Vlad in seconds, and we explained what he needs and why. Have more questions? Our very own Matic agent will call, email, or text Vlad to review his coverages with him. Because after all, insurance can be complicated, and Matic makes it simple. But not all lenders build their own mortgage platforms. In fact, most don't. For example, JP Morgan Chase uses Roostify, one of the largest and most advanced mortgage platforms out there. Watch how easy it is for any lender who uses Roostify to use Matic. The lender simply flips a switch in their back end, and now any lender who uses Roostify automatically has Matic's one-click HOI to do. So again here, a simple click Get Quote, and then the process begins. So why hasn't this been done before? Well, there are many reasons for this, but only now are mortgages going digital. 2 years ago, there was no such thing as a digital mortgage, and now 60% are being done online and growing every day. And for the first time, lenders have the ability to pass us personal and property data via API. And for the first time, insurance carriers have the ability to quote based off this data. And you can't have a digital mortgage without digital insurance. And carriers will pay us for this. On average, Matic makes $150 per policy per year. This means that every year a customer renews, Matic continues to make $150. The average lifetime value of a customer is 5 years, which means we'll make $750 over the life of a customer. And because we can't pay lenders due to mortgage regulations, our typical acquisition cost is 0. And better yet, these numbers don't include bundling auto as well. Around 30% of our customers ask to bundle their auto policy, which doubles or triples our revenue since we get a recurring commission on their auto premium as well. And so by integrating directly with mortgage lenders and piggybacking off the distribution of mortgage platforms like Roostify, Matic's vision is to help homebuyers get a Matic policy on every loan. And we're one step closer to that vision. I'm so excited to announce here at Battlefield that we're partnered with Roostify and Mortgage Hippo, two great mortgage platforms, and lenders like Academy, Mr. Cooper, Freedom, and United Wholesale Mortgage. These are some of the largest names in lending that account for $100 billion with a B in mortgage originations. If you're a mortgage lender or you want to partner with us, go to maticinsurance.com/battlefield, and we'll make insurance for your customers a breeze. Thank you.
Judges. All right, he's gonna.
So the cost of you mentioned the agent is part of this, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you scale a team of agents to the level where $750 per customer over the life of the customer is viable?
Right. So, well, first off, our customer acquisition cost is $0, but with the agent cost, it's about $50 all in.
Right.
So it's still.
You said $50?
$50.
Yeah.
Still really low. But as carriers move more and more digital, certain carriers have the ability to online bind. So we actually have the ability to online bind, and we can do that depending on the carrier. So they actually don't, depending on the carrier, they don't have to actually do anything. They don't have to talk to anyone. However, this is the largest purchase they're ever going to make, most likely. And so just like there are digital mortgages, and it's a lot easier for the customer to drive that process, oftentimes they still want to make sure, hey, what does this mean? Am I doing this right? And so that's where we have an NPS score of 93. There's a reason for that, right? We make them feel very comfortable. And it's funny, especially on for instance, on a refinance, what we found is we'll say, hey, we'll review people's coverages with them, and they refinance and they go to us because we save them money as well. And we'll say, has anyone reviewed your coverages with you? And they'll say, no, I actually don't know what these mean. And that's a real problem, right, when you see things like Irma and people think they're covered for something and they're not. So not only are we adding value in terms of trust, in terms of convenience, in terms of choice, but we're also we're educating the customers, which is really important.
What prevents another competitor, having watched TechCrunch disrupt now, saying, that's a great idea, I'm going to copy it, and I'm not going to charge them $150, I'm going to charge them $50?
Sure, good question. That's a long question, so I'm going to try to answer it in many different ways.
First, they have to be watching. Everyone's watching.
Everyone's
watching.
It's really, everyone can try. It's tough. So a couple things. Number one, insurance is regulated at the state level. So whether you get a quote from me or a policy from me, for instance, if you go to one of our carriers is Nationwide. If you go to us and we give you a Nationwide quote, or you went to Nationwide Direct, the price is the same. Insurance carriers are regulated on the state level. So there's no beating pricing. So then now we have a marketplace, right? So how do you integrate with lenders and insurance carriers? Well, on the lender side, it's extremely difficult. We can't pay a lender, which means no one can come in and undercut our price. It's really about compliance, which I'll get more into later, our API and our ability to really understand the mortgage nuance, which is extremely complicated, to be able to facilitate a product for that. On the carrier side, carriers aren't really, they don't really like to give out their API. You can't go to the bottom of their website, click developers, and get it. So there's two problems there. Number one, getting that insurance partnership is not fun. And what you think about getting a partnership with an insurance carrier, and we love our insurance carrier partners, don't get me wrong, they're just not the fastest moving people or companies. And the second problem is that when you integrate with their APIs, and we're integrated with their APIs directly, is there's about 95% the same. And there's that 5% difference per carrier. So that adds a level of complexity every time you add a new carrier. We're getting pretty good at that, but that takes a long time. So between the lenders and the carriers, we've really built ourselves a nice moat.
So in addition to the integrations, right, which I'm sure were painful, is there anything else in your software in terms of the matching and the recommendation that you would point to as truly proprietary?
Absolutely, that's a great question. I think there's a lot there. The idea is it's not just about price. So if you think about this as Kayak, and we're just going to look at, the problem with thinking about Kayak and insurance for Kayak is you maybe don't want the best price. You might want more coverage, right? So our engine tries to figure out what the best coverage is and then normalizes the price. So that way you are searching for, so we've kind of optimized for coverage. And so we have a kind of a balance between best coverage and best price, and that's something we're continually getting better and better. And we also have really cool data from the lenders. So the lender can pass us the 1003 data, which is the loan application for when you're buying a home. So what data is in there? Really exciting stuff. I think assets, liability, right? Things that carriers don't use to underwrite, but we can help figure out coverages. And of course, we have home data, and certain times we get the appraisal data. So these are all things that kind of go into our system. And to your point, and I think this is what you're getting at, is absolute proprietary. And as we continue to evolve that, we just become better and better and more of a moat.
You described the number of people after Irma and some of these other disasters we've had who were surprised about what was and wasn't covered. And as you were running through the interface there, it seemed like things moved really quickly. So, where do you educate the consumer about what's really covered? And is that regulated in some way? Are you allowed to do it in one way versus another? Because that seems like one of the really special things that could happen in this platform.
So one of the things that, even if we online bind, and we still call you afterwards for that reason. And so when we call you is when we explain your coverages, if you want it, right? You can just say, hey, we don't want to, or when we email you, we don't necessarily have to do any of that. We try to, just to make it open for you. And so they're all licensed insurance agents. So that's, if that was your question, then we actually...
But that doesn't seem any different than what normally happens, right? Some licensed insurance agent will call. Does that happen in some different way with Matic versus...
Well, normally today, when a licensed agent calls you, they're going to ask you at least 30 minutes of questions. And so that's not what we're doing. Right. We're an advisor. We're not trying to. And another thing too, like, so we've said 30% of our customers for upsell. We could double that number tomorrow if we went to them, but we're not trying to upsell them. We're trying to advise them. And so, again, we don't have to do that. You don't have to pick it up, right? So you can start to finish online if you'd like, depending on the carrier.
I think we're all learning in real time, so forgive me for not knowing a lot about the insurance market, but just thinking about kind of, okay, so you're taking the agent or the broker in some ways out of this. What, as a consumer, am I potentially missing in that? So part of the value proposition is efficiency on getting something. We just started touching on that. Is there anything else specifically that...
Well, you're getting a lot more, actually. So when you go to an agent today, they're going to ask you questions like name, date of birth, marital status. They're going to ask you roof material. A lot of questions you're not going to know, right? And so then what is their job? Their job is to help you get an insurance policy. So how do they know what's best for you? Well, they're going to base it off the data that you give them. And how good they are depends on how, right? There's like the 80-20 rule. So we use a technology to figure out what's best for you. And again, you have the final choice, and you can still talk to us. And so we augment that data, that technology, with human-powered. So you're getting the best of both worlds. So we're not removing anything. We're just making it better. So
right,
we're
and
giving
still
you
have
control.
a person to call and consult.
We've taken the control away from the agent and given it to you. So you can do whatever you want. You can go start to finish, or you can talk with an agent. It really is up to you. And so it's, keep it at that.
So on your... You've got a couple of different data integrations here. Obviously, you're going out, and then one example you integrated into Ristify's platform, but then to make your value judgments or to fill out your profiles for your algorithm to determine this is the right plan for X, Y, or Z person, you need data, right? So you need appraisal data, you need data from the insurance companies, you need data from perhaps the lender. So how robust are those APIs? How robust is that data set? How much manual work do you have to do to input that data or crunch it? And is it enough for a wide variety of lenders? Because I know it can be a little sketchy, right?
It really depends on a carrier, but in most of the cases we get in 1003 application, which contains almost more than we probably need to give you a policy. That's about the customer information. About the property information, appraisal is now standardized. So all the data is like in XML format. If you can get that file from the lender, you're good to go about everything of this house. But except appraisal, there is public sources of data. Every property in the United States can be described in public sources of data.
Public records, right?
Yes. It has a lot of information: when the house was built, what is the size, how many stories and materials, and so on.
So is there an opportunity for you to create an augmented data set that mashes all of these things together. Because right now, like if I wanted a complete data set for my home, I need to go to public records, I need to go get the blueprints, I need to go to my lender, I need to pull those, I need to find that fat folder they give you when you sign all the junk, and I need to pull out of there. So is there an opportunity for you to provide a profile for the person that allows them to modify coverage down the line?
Yes, so our future, right now we are trying to collect as much data as possible. So we can, in the future, we can give customers an ability to adjust coverage, maybe provide some additional information. If they have a fire alarm, they will get a discount from a carrier, and so on and so forth. So we're building and saving this information in our databases, and insurance policy is going to be with you at least during the mortgage process. So later maybe you want to adjust something, we already have that data. And
right.
And to add to that, a lot of times so you're saying, and this is where, going back to your question, what are we missing and how we're adding actually is, in the case you mentioned, we'll reach out to you. So after 2 years, 3 years, your house, your property, the cost to rebuild your property might actually will raise. And if your coverage did not raise, well then you've got a problem. And so we'll monitor that. Now we don't have that today, to be clear, but that's something that's absolutely what we're hyper focused on, is figuring out, again, what's the best coverage for you and making sure you have it, not just for year one, but for the life of your policy.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Like, insurance is very reactive. So if you could be proactive about that,
that's
especially
our whole.
like you see a hurricane rolling in, not obviously not that quickly, but if you saw like, hey, hurricanes have gone up 20% in the last 10 years or whatever, we need to alter your policy to take advantage of or to protect you against that.
Right, and I think the biggest thing is most people, I mean, it's really sad to say, I think a lot of you heard stories, most people didn't know, like, oh, I have home insurance, so I'm good. And it's like, well, but not flood insurance. And that's heartbreaking. And that's why I'm really excited. I mean, to what we're doing, I'm not excited about that, but I'm excited that we're having the opportunity to really mentor. And because the whole idea of this company came from a personal experience of mine where I was buying a home and I had no idea what was going on. 45 emails in 30 days, the mortgage process was brutal. 2 days before closing, they said, hey, now you need to get insurance. And I was like, why didn't you tell me this before? How do I get it? What's home insurance? And then I was looking at the coverages. I'm like, hey, I have no idea what this means. Can someone explain it to me? And I was looking online. It looked like the website's from 1998. And I'm thinking to myself, I have no idea what I'm doing. And so I wanted to make sure everyone understands insurance. As sexy as that sounds.
Sounds pretty sexy to a homeowner, I think.
Yeah.
Well, we're pretty much out of time. So one more round of applause for
Thanks,
Matic.
guys.
Woo!